everyone, this is Mr. Gunnell. I'm a science teacher at the high school, and the point of this video is to give you a quick overview of some of the Zoom features that might be necessary as we're starting school this year. Now, if you see on the left, I have a quick overview of some of the things I'm going to cover, and so you might find that useful if you want to jump ahead, if you feel like you're really comfortable with something. That's what that's there for. Now, you'll see that in the towards the middle of the screen, I'm opening everything with the Zoom app. You can technically also enter a Zoom meeting with a link provided to you by your teacher. Or the way that I'm entering this meeting this time is by clicking join, and I've set up a personal meeting ID from my other account, and so a teacher might actually just give you their personal room ID, and so you could enter the meeting that way. And so what I'm going to do here is go ahead and join the meeting. Now this one has a password, they might not always, so I'm going to enter the password, and then you'll have to wait until you're let in by the teacher. So the teacher will admit you into the room, and then you can choose to join with computer audio. You can also check the box so it doesn't do that every time to you. I have mine defaulted to starting without video or audio, so you'd have to turn that on by clicking any of these buttons down here, and you'll see that as soon as I do that, you'll see me up top. Now, you can also see other people if you do gallery view over on the side, and this is the other account, so I have the video turned off on that one. Now, you can mute or unmute as you need to. The recommendation is you just stay muted unless you're going to talk. And so now I can get into the audio settings portion of this. So mute, unmute. Again, we recommend that you just stay muted the entire meeting. There's a couple ways you can unmute yourself. One is just press the button down at the bottom, and the other way is, depending on your computer, you'll have a couple of different shortcuts. So if you hold the mouse over the unmute button or the mute button, notice that mine is Shift-Command-A for audio, A for audio, and so I can press that and turn my audio on or off. Now, my suggestion would be to actually just leave it on mute, and so you can see that the Zoom thinks that I'm talking, so it's reminding me. But what you can do is just hold down the space bar, and whenever you hold down the space bar, it'll unmute until you release it, and you notice that as soon as I released it, it went back to being muted. So that would be a pretty important suggestion that I would make to you. Now, also some people do have some sound issues, so I've started this meeting with my AirPods in, and the reason for that is that sometimes people have different headphones or different speakers connected. You'll notice if I press this little up button right next to unmute, there are several different options for how I could connect to audio. So every once in a while when you unmute yourself and you still can't hear the other person, you might think something's wrong, and it might just be because the wrong microphone is selected or the wrong speaker is selected, so you might have to actually find the right one. I could go through my speakers in my computer, my AirPods, or just the speaker that I have connected. So that might be one of the issues if you're having trouble hearing, even though you're thinking you're unmuted or the other person's unmuted. So that's really how you deal with some sound issues. In terms of your video settings, again, we talked about turning on or off the video. Now, you can also get some extra video settings by clicking this little up arrow here and going into your video settings. Now, one thing that you might have is if your internet's running a little slow, mine's already set to enable HD. So if I turn that off, it's going to go to a lower resolution, and that might actually help with buffering and improve the quality of your Zoom if it's going too slow. So I'm going to turn that back on. And also there's the option for mirroring your video. That's really kind of up to you. It just switches the view of how you're viewed on the screen. A little fun one is touch up my appearance. You can make yourself look really nice. Really all it does is just soften the picture, and so that's an option. Now, there are some other settings down here you could always play around with. I always have mine turn on whether or not I'm going to use the video when I log in, so that I can kind of preview what's going to happen. But you can also look through some of those other options as you find time. Now, you can also get to the audio settings by clicking the up arrow here. But again, there are some additional settings that you can look through if you want to play with some different audio settings on your Zoom. You can also mute the microphone whenever you're joining a meeting, no matter what the settings are. And again, I have this checked on so that I can unmute myself if I ever want to just press the space bar rather than actually having to click unmute. So The other option is virtual background. Now you also saw that when I was in here in my video settings, I could just click virtual background. Or what I could also do is go directly to virtual background. So let's say I don't want you to see my little vacuum cleaner back there, and I want to choose some background for my Zoom. I can go some of the default options, or what I could also do is add an image, and maybe I want to do Jupiter because I'm a science teacher. And so it looks like a nice little background, and then my vacuum's hiding. It's not in the screen anymore. Again, you get the option for mirroring your video. If you're in there, I don't really think that's very useful. So the next part, I'm going to turn this off, is for screen sharing. So if you try to screen share as a student, a lot of times you'll see that the host has disabled screen sharing. So if you want to show something on your computer to your teacher, they would have to enable that. So from my other device, I could go ahead and allow everyone to share. And so once I've allowed that, then you'd get the screen sharing options of what you'd like to share to someone. But again, that's probably not going to be a super common option for you. The other sharing options is, let's say I wanted to share something that was on my iPad. You have some other options there, and you can play around with those. I'm not going to go into those right now, but those are some of the other options. Now, there are some other windows that you can turn on once you're into the Zoom. Usually when I jump into a Zoom, I'll immediately turn these two windows on because I think they're pretty useful. You have your participants window and you have your chat window. And then I'll move these back in so we can see everything. And there we go. So in your participants window, you can see everybody that's in the room. It looks like just me twice because I have both of my accounts turned on. I can unmute myself there as well, or there's some other options that you really probably don't need. Now you have some different reactions here in the chat window. Nothing's there yet, but we can get to that in a second. So really the biggest thing to watch for in the participants window is some of the other options you have. Sometimes you can raise your hand, yes, no, go slower, go faster, or if you maybe need a break, you can put your little coffee cup on. It's like, I really need a break. And the only way to turn it off is to click that again, because if you click something else, it'll just switch to whatever thing you want. So you just click the same one again to turn it off. The teacher could also just turn them all off for you. Now, so that's really everything you would need in the participant window. You can play around with some of those reactions. And there's also the chat window. And so the chat is pretty straightforward. You can type a message. A lot of you have already used this. But what you could do is you can either message everyone, or you can message just the host if you want to send a private message. And depending on how the settings are in your specific Zoom, you might be able to message other students in the room. You just want to be careful who you're messaging, whether it's everyone, just the teacher, or another student. So that's how you message recipients. There's also a difference between nonverbal feedback and meeting reactions. And that's one thing that a lot, myself even, I'll sometimes call these reactions because they seem like you're going to react to something or you're going to respond. But technically these up here in the participants window are called nonverbal feedback. And so you can respond yes to a question or no to a question, go slower, go faster. And again, those more options. The difference between that and reactions is the reactions window is down here. And so your reactions are, you can clap, you can give a thumbs up. And when you click those will show up on your screen. But eventually those will disappear after a few seconds. So those aren't permanent. The nonverbal feedback will actually stay until you turn it off. So you can see that disappeared without me doing anything. So those are some of the differences between reactions and then nonverbal feedback. And so if you have a group of people and everybody is responding to something, you might notice that, if I was on my other device, that I could, react in a different way. So I could react from that one. I give a thumbs up from my other account. So those are some of the basic and pretty important features. A lot of things we've noticed people troubleshoot with, specifically like the audio thing when you can't get your sound to work. It again could just be coming through the wrong speaker. And so I hope that helps you get a good idea of Zoom. Obviously when you're done, you can go ahead and leave the meeting and then you should be good. So thanks for listening to this, and I hope that this helps you get started for the new school year. Looking forward to seeing everybody.